When I talk about Cairo, it's like talking about my mother. The relation is very deep and very profound. I am very much attached to the city because, as I said, it's my city. And I must tell you that there is no one single Cairo. There are multiple Cairos. I was born and raised in a neighborhood called Garden City, and when I was a kid, I used to go to a French school, and almost in Garden City, most of the people spoke French. And I remember the odors of the gardens, of the flowers, and it was very beautiful. Unfortunately, those beautiful neighborhoods are deteriorating now. The decision maker in Egypt has a different model. And I'm talking about the government, the people who decide for the city. They have Dubai as an example, as a model. And I believe that this shouldn't happen because Dubai is something very different, and because Cairo has its beauty, and we should preserve the old buildings, the old neighborhoods. Cairo, of course, has had a big influence on my writing. I was inspired to write, it was not my first novel, but it's probably the most famous, Yacoubian Building. I lived in the Yacoubian Building. My father, Alaa Al-Aswany, was a famous writer and a lawyer, and his office was in the building. And then I inherited the office, and I felt all the time the human history in the building. I felt that even the elevator, even every part of the building has its history. And I think that's why I was inspired to write Yacoubian Building. I remember how I had the idea to write the Yacoubian Building, that I was in Garden City walking, and the American embassy was demolishing a building in order to build a new, strong one. The way they demolished the building was very sophisticated. They had a very big machine, and they cut the building like, as it was a piece of cake, like this. So I found myself with rooms of the building, and when people had left, they left things they considered not important, like newspapers, towels, and I said to myself, this room is full of human history, and I can easily imagine that in this room there was a wedding night or a divorce negotiations, or even somebody committed suicide. You can imagine. So I had, for the first time, the idea to write the human history of the Yacoubian Building. Critics say that the Yacoubian Building is a microcosm of the Egyptian society with different generations, different people. And I agree on that. I think it's true. As a novelist, I see and I feel the history everywhere, because I use a category in fiction called the place as a main character. And this was used by many writers before. It's the assumption of this category is that every place we are using for our daily purpose is full of human history. And for the novelist to imagine or even to invent the history of the place. And I did that in my novels. So every place in Cairo, for me, is full of human history. Yes, there is chaos, but I love this chaos. I believe this chaos is a way to express our life. The city could have been much more well organized, but less vivid. So you have in Cairo, for example, crossing the street in Cairo is quite an adventure. You need to you need to have experience and to have the real timing when to cross the street, and you need to be lucky. I believe we have had a great heritage in art and literature, and we were almost the first Arab country in many things. The first Arab country to send students on scholarship. That was Muhammad Ali, the beginning of the 19th century, very early. And he sent students to usually to France, to Paris, Sorbonne, and then they come back and then they work for the state. And that was in the cinema, for example. In the beginning, they used to call the cinema the cinematograph. And the first cinematograph was 1895 in Paris by the brother Lumiere. The first cinematograph in Egypt was just 11 months after the first cinematograph, because there was an Italian who went from Alexandria to Paris, and he bought the rights of the cinematograph, and he made the first cinematograph very early, even before many Western countries who had the cinematograph. So the visual art is no exception. The visual art was supported by Greek and Italian painters who opened their studios in Alexandria and downtown Cairo for the Egyptian students. So the theater, the same thing. So we have had a very strong heritage in art and literature, and I believe that it's something very positive for any writer or Egyptian artist, because we are just beginning or continuing a very strong, deep tradition of art and culture. What I don't like is the people in Cairo, unfortunately, they are no more allowed to express what they want to say. So if you talk, even on Facebook, if you say anything against the government or against the regime, you will be arrested and you will be sent to prison for an indefinite time. We don't know. Probably you'll be released in 1 month or 1 year or 5 years. Nobody knows. And I believe this is very harmful for the people, because you cannot keep the people scared forever. And if they are scared, something will be deformed in their character. What is normal is to be free to say whatever you think. And Egyptians knew that before. We lived sometimes in our modern history, and the freedom of speech was protected, but no more. I am considered as an opponent, which is true. I disagree with General or Marshal Sisi, because I believe it's a military dictatorship, and he knows that that's what I believe, because I met him twice before when he was the director of the military intelligence. So he knows me very well. Accordingly, as soon as he arrived to power, I was banned from everything. I was banned from writing, from publishing, from writing my weekly article. Under the dictatorship of Mr. Sisi, you have no right to disagree, let alone expressing your ideas. No, you must all the time agree and support the leader, which is not my case, of course. So when they began to give troubles to my daughters, and then I decided to leave, especially that I was working by that time on a novel about the revolution, and I knew that they will never tolerate this novel. I used to teach in the American universities before, but I used to teach and go back to Cairo. But since 2018, I stayed in America. The idea of the exile and the city is very interesting because according to what happened with great writers like, for example, Ernest Hemingway, who lived very little in America. Gabriel Garcia Marquez left Colombia at the age of 20 and he never came back. Many writers wrote about their cities in a better way when they had left. And I tried to understand this phenomena, and I think that, and probably it's my case, when you are no more in the city, you probably have a better vision for the city, and you have a strong nostalgia. And those two motives are very important in writing. I see what's happening in Cairo or what happened in Cairo in a much better way because I'm not involved anymore physically. And in the same time, I have this nostalgia, and I wrote 2 novels in 5 years, which is exceptional for me. Usually it takes more time. The coexistence in Egypt, not only in Cairo, is part of our culture, you know. And I wrote about that in Cairo, and I wrote about that in Alexandria in my latest novel. Egypt used to be a place where everybody is welcomed. Nobody would talk or would think because you are different in religion or in color or whatever, then you deserve less. This is not Egypt. Egypt is for everybody, and accordingly, we had everybody in Egypt. We had in Cairo, for example, downtown, we had the Italians, we had the Greek people, we had the Jews who lived for centuries in Egypt, and they were considered Egyptians in the first place who happened to be Jews. Nobody thought of them like Jews. No, they were Egyptians, and we had superstars in the Egyptian cinema and Egyptian music who were Jews, and they were praised by everybody. So this tolerance, this open culture, and this coexistence, I think it's very important in the Egyptian society. And despite the dictatorship and the religious extremism and all this, it still exists. The most beautiful scenes I ever saw in Cairo was during the revolution. I lived the revolution minute by minute. I lived 18 days at Tahrir Square, and I saw Egyptians like I never saw them before. They were the same Egyptians, but very different. And I remember many scenes, you know, of the poor people who used to come to the square with sandwiches, with food for the young protesters, and they just left the food and left. This feeling of solidarity is unbelievable. The most beautiful moment in Cairo I ever lived when the revolution won. That was Friday, and I was going from my house in Garden City to the Tahrir Square. Usually it takes 10 minutes. It took me like 2 hours because people wanted all the time to stop me and to ask questions and talk with me. And then all of a sudden, I heard people shouting, and usually this happens when the police shot the protesters. So I thought that they are shooting the protesters again. And then I realized that Mubarak decided to step down. And that was an unbelievable moment. People were hugging each other in the street. And I believe this is the most beautiful moment I ever lived in Cairo. The future, not only in Cairo, the future in Egypt, we don't know. I think that we cannot continue this way. The situation has become really unbearable. The economy is in a catastrophic situation. Mr. Sisi, for many reasons, had many loans, billions of loans, and he didn't use the loans properly, in my opinion. And now it's too expensive to live in Egypt for most of the people. Most of Egyptians are poor now, and I think that it's very hard to imagine that this will continue. I think something will happen. I don't know what will happen. I don't have any idea about what will happen, but I'm quite sure that this situation is not sustainable. I think that Cairo has a secret, and this secret is related to our identity. Egyptians are Arabs. They have been Arabs and Muslims for 15 centuries. But they existed before for more than 20, 25 centuries. So we were Egyptians before the Arabs came. I think this stratified identity does exist. That we are Arabs, yes, this is true, but we are Egyptians in the first place. And I believe the secret of Cairo, or the Egyptian personality, is the love. Egyptians love each other, love their country, and love the strangers. And I believe this love is translated to many things. Very decent, a very decent attitude, because of the secret of love, in my opinion.